that this is one of the best shows, my top 10 best experiences going to an AEW show. Before going to Collision, I had some really awesome barbecue, and that was also a really great experience. So I just like downtown Hartford. There's a lot of great food areas if you're ever in Hartford. Good ribs, good macaroni and cheese, and I also had, a good brownie sundae, so I'm going to show you guys some pictures of it. And then when I was at, the XL Center, it was also crazy because what happened was that I was on the secondary seats. There was a real front row, and I could have gotten front row tickets, but I just didn't know, the grading system yet. The seat system, but I could have gotten front row tickets, but there was 8 or 9 seats in the front row with nobody there. So, everybody in the second row just kind of went up. And actually, even the security said, you know what, since nobody's there, why not why not go for it? And it kind of reminded me of that Ferris Bueller statement of if you, if you miss out on life, you're not going to realize that it's gone past you. And so I'm kind of happy that I did that because that's very rare. And there were a lot of great matches. I was kind of happy that I saw Christopher Daniels wrestle, and because he is a legend, so I was kind of shouting, Christopher Daniels, you're a motherfucking legend. And I was kind of getting really into it. I was also really happy to see Powerhouse Hobbs, but like I've said, I kind of get mad when I see Powerhouse Hobbs on on penultimate matches, meaning the match that's right before the live event, really right before the live show. So it does kind of feel very frustrating because he has a lot of potential and everything he does should be on television. Should be kind of 5 minutes of him squashing, just like with Ryback. It would have been bad if they had his squash matches during a pre-tape or dark match. They should have had that on television, so that wasn't that good. Andrade versus Buddy Murphy, that was really good. For their ladder match, it was definitely a good television match. Obviously it was very choreographed, and that sunset flip powerbomb that Andrade did to Buddy Murphy was kind of really cool when I recorded it in slow motion. Just the level of just knowing what to do, even Andrade having his head between the ring rungs to make sure he stays safe, and how Buddy Murphy landed to make sure he wasn't hurt. That was it really kind of shows you the level of choreography that they had to do in a matter of a couple of seconds, and it could end in disaster and all that. I also kind of liked how Julia Hart got involved, but she didn't overdo it, and they did a good job with this match. It was not too little, not too long. You had Darby Allin versus Minoru Suzuki, if I'm saying his name right, and there was a couple of things about this match that, first of all, I'm not really a big fan of wrestlers kind of throwing people through tables or hitting somebody with a chair and doing other things like that before matches start, because usually in WWE and other companies, sometimes you throw out the match if that happens because it's that they're being too riotous, so it does kind of come confusing. And then also Darby Allin did an open challenge, so sometimes when you do that you get a little confused because you're oh well, is this actually a hardcore match or is this a regular match? So I just kind of like it. That's almost been a little overdone in AEW. But they had a really great match, a very physical, hard-hitting match. And then also with Darby Allin wanting to have the TNT Championship in Chicago, there's also something about him kind of stepping up and really just having multiple matches, multiple feuds, and expressing his frustration. He's really, the past 2 weeks of AEW shows, he's really kind of been an MVP, really. And he's really kind of gone from being Sting's lackey to just being more of himself. He's done that way more stronger than Sammy Guevara. So out of the 4 pillars, I think that Jungle Boy is doing a better job. And also really Darby Allin's kind of doing a better job, because I think they learn kind of from MJF that really it's just about knowing that you're one of Tony's guys and then just taking the opportunities by the balls and doing whatever with it. So, I do think that, it's really MJF is number 1, then it's Darby Allin, then it's Sammy Guevara, and then it's Jungle Boy and then Sammy Guevara. I think Sammy Guevara spends way too much time with the Jericho Appreciation Society. You don't really see Sammy Guevara kind of have a, you know what, I want to be me, I want to be by myself type of personality. That's why I like Jack Perry better, because I think that his heel gimmick, you're really seeing more of a Jack Perry that's being himself and trying to be himself versus somebody that's kind of protected by Tony. The same way you look at Sammy Guevara and you kind of see that he feels a little too protected by Chris Jericho. Or in the Jericho Appreciation Society, it's really just a Chris Jericho kiss my ass club. So I'm kind of happy that that I'm seeing like a lot of improvements by Darby Allin. He doesn't feel like what somebody protected by Sting or a Sting kiss my ass club type of thing. And I would also kind of say, like, the match was good. I kind of like Darby Allin being by himself. And I would say, like, as a side note, I would love to see Chris Jericho versus Sammy Guevara at Wembley. I think that would be a great match. Or even if you did Sting versus Darby Allin at Wembley, and somehow they worked that out, that would be good. And then the next thing is that you had the CM Punk promo. So it was kind of a good intermission from all these matches, because you just had, like, 2 matches that had some hardcore, hard-hitting style. And then, you know, CM Punk sprays his interim title with an X. So that's also good, because another big money match that they can have for Wembley is definitely a rematch between MJF and CM Punk, and they're good. They're a good enough personality, so they kind of want to build up to the next couple of weeks, like Adam Cole versus MJF in Chicago. In Wembley, it's CM Punk versus MJF. Or CM Punk versus Ricky Starks, and then the winner faces MJF at Wembley. Even if you do Ricky Starks versus CM Punk, or it's a double qualification, and you do like a triple threat of CM Punk, Ricky Starks, and MJF, you know, that's just kind of really, really good. But they're doing a great job with CM Punk. Like, I do think that you kind of can hope for matches that will happen at big pay-per-views, and they should build to that. And I think it would be a big fuck you if CM Punk doesn't do both Wembley and Chicago. He should do both, not just Chicago, because it also says that we don't trust CM Punk outside of the Chicago area. They had to kind of have him at Wembley, and he deserves it. And then another thing that I would say is that I did think that him graffitiing the title was a little bad, because that kind of is like an NWO ripoff type of thing. But I also really appreciate them having a match with him and Ricky Starks actually facing each other and wanting to have a, you know, best 2 out of 3 type of thing. And I think that, as I said, I think my big concern is that, you know, it should be a double DQ, or it should be like a double, like, it should kind of end in a tie or whatever. You can't have CM Punk beat Ricky Starks, because, like, what do you do with Ricky Starks afterwards? And then also you can't have CM Punk lose, because then it's almost like, you know what, he's becoming a jobber type of thing. So it's a very hard situation. But I think if you have CM Punk win, which I think is going to happen, you can honestly do more with that. You just have to kind of have Ricky Starks go after another title or something like that. Like, you know, or he just have to, like, you know, talk about having a match at Wembley, and maybe he goes after the ROH title, or he kind of like finds like a babyface holding a title. Like, you can't do Orange Cassidy versus Ricky Starks, because obviously you have John Moxley, you know, and Orange Cassidy right now. So, and also TNT have Luchasaurus versus Darby Allin. So you kind of have to make, you know, something for Ricky Starks, and he should have the match on the card and be featured strongly. So you got to do something with him, and have him face against a good babyface. So I think that would be good. Or even if you did Darby Allin versus Ricky Starks at Wembley, that would be a good match. But Ricky Starks needs to have a match, and he needs to kind of get over big at Wembley. The next match on the card was a squash match with Samoa Joe versus Gravity. And like I've said, that, you know, while I appreciate the luchadors and Gravity type of thing, Gravity really doesn't fit on the card. He's just a gimmick wrestler, and then that whole, like, you know, like, I'm walking in outer space, like I'm moonwalking without moonwalking. You know, I really kind of don't like it. Like, as I said, that kind of is almost like you're just featuring Gravity because Tony has a boner for this guy this week. So, you know, it's kind of bad when you have him kind of win 2 matches, and then you have him, I think he won 1 match, and then you have him lose to Pac, and then you have him lose to Samoa Joe. So it's almost like a burial type of thing. So it doesn't really work. It's just to feature Samoa Joe And then once again, you don't have Samoa Joe making an open challenge or whatever for Wembley. So that's not good. And then also the next things you have Kiera Hogan versus Sky Blue. So again, that's just your women's match. Like two women that are just having a match. You really don't. They really don't do anything special. They don't get on the microphone and they don't talk about what Wembley or anything means to them. So it's just a kind of like a filler match to the show. And then there's also the Bullet Club, Juice Robinson's and the Ass Boys versus Action Andretti and two other people. So I didn't really care for the match. I don't care for Action Andretti. I don't care for Juice Robinson and all of them and stuff like that. I do like the Ass Boys just because of Billy Gunn. I was shouting, your father is a legend, or I love your dad. Just be funny and stuff like that. So so it was just there to be there. And they really have to do something with them. Honestly, if they want to go after the Trios title or they want to face the Acclaim in a Trios match at Wembley, I think that would be good. And then the next thing that I would say is that before the main event match and on the Dark Show, they had I think it was called The Boys, who the two wrestlers that hang out with Dalton Castle, but they're in a squash match. But I also like Dalton Castle and The Boys, so I was kind of cool. I was happy to see them do that, but they were in a squash match. And then the next thing that I would say is that the main event was FTR versus MJF. It was a really awesome match. It did feel like pay-per-view quality. It does feel, and I also felt that it had very interesting storytelling. I think the thing that I liked about this match is that I know a lot of people were very, very upset with Adam Cole and MJF losing. I think that was very cool that MJF got the pinfall, because that really kind of shows you, because most champions don't do that. If you had Hulk Hogan and Macho Man as a team, and Hogan was holding the WWF title, Hogan would make sure Macho Man gets the pinfall if they need to take it. He would not do something like take the pinfall, because then it also makes that tag team champion that pin him look good. So it makes Dax Harwood or that other person in FTR, whoever scored the pinfall, it makes them look they should be a single star. So it's not a good look when you have a tag team champion pin your heavyweight champion. But I also kind of like that because it shows that MJF was willing to sacrifice himself for Adam Cole, and still, I think you saw a lot of it that we all know MJF is a rat, really. So he's playing the long-term game with his manipulation, or maybe he turned hard, but I think he's playing the long-term game. And like I said, that I think that my strategy was to have them win the titles, and then what happens is that they have a match with Brian Cage and Big Bill, and what you do is that you have MJF screw over Adam Cole, and then he gets a beat down by Brian Cage and Big Bill. They become tag team champions, and then they fight FDR at Wembley. That's what I would have done. But I also kind of like this because what they're doing is they're subverting expectations. They're not giving you what you expect, and they give you something a little bit better. And I think that's good because you want to be unpredictable, but you also want to do it in a way that doesn't feel like a Vince Russo match, like in TNA, where his solution was to have so much interference and clusterfucks. This I felt like was, it was they had A, B, C, D, E, F ways for the match, and realistically, that was the best way to do it. And they also tie in how FTR was part of the Pinnacle and AEW's faction, so they could have easily done how a 4-way beatdown on Adam Cole and turned heel, but they didn't do that. So I did think that there was always that threat that Adam Cole was in danger of getting screwed over by MJF, and they did that so well of teasing it, but doing enough to say, is he going to be Dr. Jekyll? Is he going to be Mr. Hyde? But making him Dr. Jekyll at the end, that was good. And then they were giving out pizza and tequila. I kind of got mad because MJF was about to give it to me, but then he kind of changed his mind. But I understand he had half a pizza, so they didn't want to do something give it to one side. They wanted to give it to other people. But also it was also kind of sucky too because there are a bunch of kids standing next to me, so obviously it's that thing too. Cute little kids get pizza, grown adults get that tough shit type of thing. But it's not the end of the world. And I also just think that, as I said, it was more just that they kind of wanted to share it with all sides of the ring, just kind of make you feel like it. But also I was happy that they're giving out pizza and tequila because it kind of shows that MJF and Adam Cole and FTR are having a big party. And I was also happy that one of them wanted to do selfies with one of those little girls and stuff like that, give them a good moment. I was happy that there were a bunch of kids that were like 4 or 5 years old that wanted to go up front and like hang out with other people that just jumped to the front row, and I was cool with it because I'm not really a kid person. And I had a little brother that was kind of like a spoiled brat growing up. So I kind of just liked being like, what, they're just kids. They just want to have a good time, give them a memory. And it made me think about like what Andre the Giant did, because there's a story that when Andre the Giant had a match, Mark Henry was like a little kid and then he wasn't being careful, so he fell over the barricade, and Andre could have easily yelled at him, like being like, you're being clumsy, or obviously there was racism back then, so he could have just been more hard on him, saying like, kick this kid out for being unruly. So Andre picked up Mark Henry, put him back like where he was, and just was cool with him, understood that he's a kid trying to like have a good experience. And that's kind of how I felt, and that's kind of one thing I learned from Andre, is that I could have been like that cranky old man, like, oh well, you know what, I paid for tickets, I've gone to 4 shows, I deserve pizza, I deserve tequila, I deserve to have all these things. But I was like, no, I want everybody to have a good experience as well. It's not about me. And then, like I've said about what happened to me in Albany, like there's this fan that was like kind of standing up and not sitting down and making it about himself, really. So I kind of just learned that, I'm not entitled, and just because I went to 4 shows in 2 weeks, even if Tony Khan or all those other people don't watch my videos and they know that I did that, or they know that I don't do that, I'm not entitled to feel like, I get special privilege. Because, when I did the 48-hour film project, I used to be loud and proud and grandstand on stage because I felt like I worked so hard at filmmaking, or I've done like 16, 17, 48s in a year. I deserve special privilege. And I've learned that I can't do that. That's me with an out-of-control ego, and that's just not appropriate. And I just and I'm happy that I've learned so much about humility. And then the other thing that I would say is that I'm happy that those little boy, those 2 little boys that were next to me, and those 2 little girls that were next to me, like they had a great experience as well, because it was good. And actually I had to grab one of them because like when Darby Allin and Minoru Suzuki was like hitting the barricades at like full impact, like some kids were trying to stand up on the barricades, so I kind of prevented them from kind of getting collateral damage. And I'm happy that I did that because again, when I was a kid, I just remember not being allowed to kind of like, if there was like something nice or whatever, or I wanted to do something or had a good time like that, I was kind of told, what, even if it's there, you're not having it. Or sometimes, when I was about to get hurt in different situations growing up in my life, sometimes people would allow me to get hurt and not pull me away or not look out for my safety, because they're kind of like, well, you know what, you're going to learn the hard way or whatever. So I was kind of happy that I've learned just to kind of give these kids a good time, and then just not be a cranky old adult, but also just kind of make sure that they were safe and like having a good experience as well. Because I used to kind of just be like, oh, I hate kids, or oh well, they're gonna have a better time than me, because everybody like thinks of kids and they think of their sons and daughters. But I was kind of happy that I grew up a lot. I'm just saying, like, what, it's a good time for everybody, not just about my good time. And I was kind of happy that I just learned something that, even though I've kind of grew up with people being hard on me, or I was adopted out of an abusive situation, and I was kind of given the mentality of, oh, well, you got to forgive your mother, you got to move the hell on and live your life. Fuck the pain that happened to you and your brother. I just learned not to be a cranky old adult, or just be like, what, I want to make these kids a little miserable, just to be like, what, it's my time, not your time. So I'm happy that I had a lot of maturity, and I wasn't just like Mr. Butthurt. But it was a great night, and ringside seats are awesome, and I appreciate them having shows in Hartford and Bridgeport and other venues in Connecticut, because there's a lot of great places to get food in Connecticut. I was happy I got some good barbecue and other things like that. And also, like, too, it gives people good opportunities, because then I get ringside seats in Hartford and Bridgeport because it's so easy to get seats because there's not that many people there. But then when you go to bigger shows, and you want to go to bigger shows, you may not get that, but also you kind of feel kind of happy that you had that balance of like almost everybody gets a ringside seat chance. So I was very, very happy with the show. And also, like, even though I didn't get any pizza, that pizza that they had was crap, really. It wasn't like going to Sally's or or Pepe's. And I think I even saw like a Pizza Hut label on it or whatever. So it did kind of feel like they were not doing their research on really really good pizza. But I also appreciate MJF because once again he did that in Bridgeport last year before the Full Gear show, that he kind of talks to the crowd and they had like a bit of a party. So I was kind of very happy that he did that because it shows that they do care. And I know they do that in WWE as well. But I also appreciate Tony Khan going before because they both kind of show that, you know what, this is a big deal to the fans, so we're going to act like it's a big deal. And I really appreciate that because there are some, because, you know, there's people like Vince, you know, who will always hang out in a skybox and not really show, or like he's backstage, but he's not coming out at the end of every show and be like, you know what, he doesn't have a lot of time left. So, you know, he's not like saying, you know what, I want to come out, I want to like, you know, even be an announcer, I want to like do this, I want like the fans to kind of, I want to give it back a lot. You don't really see that a lot with Vince anymore. But I kind of really appreciate Tony and the wrestlers for doing that and I also appreciate Tony for allowing this because, like I was saying, this was Vince McMahon. He'd probably do pin the tail on the donkey type of thing with all the wrestlers, or kind of embarrass them. So, you know, I do think the tequila and the pizza was definitely more adult, but I do think that it was kind of like Tony saying, you know what, FTR, MJF, and Adam Cole, come on, you know, I like your idea, let's go do this. Not just, oh, well, I'm going to do the Vince McMahon thing and cut it off, or be like, okay, well, it's before 10 p.m., you can't do this because we have to think of the children. And then also, too, that another thing that happened was that there were some fans that were rowdy and using profanity. So it was a little weird because some of the security was talking to them and saying that we have to kick people out who do that, so just chill. If you want to use profanity or go crazy in the audience and curse a lot, you have to say that for after 10. And I feel mixed about it. I understand freedom of speech, but I can respect that because, you know, you got to make sure it's good for kids. But the other thing that I would say is that, as Jim Cornette said, that AEW's been getting a lot of flack from their network because fans are saying fuck this, fuck that, you know, like, and in like that time, like a few years ago when people were calling Anthony Bowens a fag and other things like that, you have to kind of like watch your mouths. And then also, as Jim Cornette's saying, is that you can't have real fan reactions if there's so much profanity. They have to like use crowd noise or whatever, really. Or sometimes you may have a wrestler like Hobbs get a big pop, and if you're cursing so much during that, they'd have to replace his pop for crowd noise and may not be as loud or whatever. So it does hurt the wrestlers if you're not watching your mouth. But overall, great experience. I really enjoyed this, and I'm happy to have reviewed it. It was a very awesome night.